Alright, everybody, this is Fireally and guest 3885. Devin's not here today. And welcome back to the Mysteries of Hyrule. Today we'll be discussing the legend of Zelda Xelda, my bad, Evoland 2. And we're going to start out kind of by explaining what it is. So if you're watching my series of this and you don't want spoilers, you should probably wait until the series is finished.
Never tell people not to watch the video that you're currently creating. That's bad idea.
I do what I want. Besides, we all know that this is going to be a spoiler video because we spoil all the games in this series. Alright, so basically, Evoland 2 has more references to The Legend of Zelda than any other game that is built into it. Particularly the Triforce actually meeting Link and possibly Navi as well. And you actually read an ancient Hylian tablet. No one can read it, and they're trying to decipher it, which is kind of a big part of this as well. And we also run into a place called the Sacred Grove, where all times converge and multiple universes. Kind of like our good friend, the Lost Woods. Also,
everyone loves the Lost Woods. It's where
yes,
people go to die.
It would also explain where the
I'm
Happy
sorry,
Mask
that's a different
salesman could have gotten Mario's face, because Mario's just kind of standing there the whole game. Spoiler alert.
Yeah, you can find Mario in the Sylph Woods.
Alright, so the first thing we're going to do here is kind of place it on the Zelda timeline. So we're going to kind of talk about some things that happened in the game that could prove this. So first of all, we have, this is the one that I'm kind of subscribed to, is pre the Wind Waker. And that's because in the game there's more than one time where people prophesy that there's going to be a flood that's going to take over the world. You also find Navi. She introduces herself as Nawi by default in the game, and she says that she's been sleeping for 7 years, enough time for Link to grow up and become an adult again in the woods here. He didn't appear in the Wind Waker when Ganondorf came back around, but this was also because Zelda kind of shoved him into a different timeline, so he wasn't even there.
Thanks, Zelda.
Yeah, great decision there. And there's a theory that Navi becomes the Great Fairy Queen based on when she tells Toon Link, "You are just my type." So because the Navi in the game has a little bit of a humanoid form, so it would support the fact that she is kind of undergoing this transformation to become the queen of all fairies, and she's kind of in the Sylph Woods to do it in a place peacefully.
I'm pretty sure most people just assumed when the Great Fairy says, "You're just my type," she's hitting on him. I mean, many Links can have many love interests. Can't the Great Fairy be a love interest for Link? I don't know the biology of Great Fairies and Hylians, but hey, it can work, right?
Yes, that's a big counter theory to this. Another thing that is kind of for the Wind Waker is you can't read Ancient Hylian anymore, just like you can't in the Wind Waker, which is, a big deal. And you'll naturally meet Ocarina of Time Link, which would mean that you're meeting the hero kind of before he is needed to be called again. And then you also meet...
Can anyone really read Ancient Hylian?
We can. We have the Historia that tells us all of it, except for the language of Hylia. No one can read that.
What about that ring that you were looking at earlier today? You couldn't read that Ancient Hylian. Not even the Historia could read that Ancient Hylian.
Yeah, it's got no direct translations, so they cheated with their little inscription there, because it could say whatever it means, because they don't know what it means, and no one else can disprove it. I'll show that ring there, just for kicks and giggles. But yeah, that's a Hylia language there, not Hylian, Hylia's language. It was universal at the time. Anyway, the last thing here is there's a woman that you find who's talking about her chickens in the game. And she says, "A child in green scattered them all around, put one on his head, and flew around with them," which would point to Ocarina of Time Link as a child. Or it could point to Clink from the original Evoland. I don't think he ever flew with chickens, though.
I forgot about the original Evoland. I never played it, just Evoland 2.
I don't think he did, but I'd have to double check on that one. I'll let you guys know with annotations and editing.
Maybe he did it off screen.
Maybe. But the thing is...
Don't you fly around with chickens in your spare time? That's what I do.
There's some evidence that the world that you are in here is not Hyrule. Well, it could be far away from Hyrule. It could be part of the mountains that are partially unsubmerged for a little bit before they get resubmerged, creating the Wind Waker timeline. It's kind of shifty about where it might be in the world of Hyrule, but that's for other discussion. Anyway, the next place that you could put this is post the Wind Waker, which would is kind of the opposite of what I just said there, because the new continent could be the world of Evoland, I guess, because it's this new place. It's coming down. There's some people there that did some mysterious things, built some stuff that we don't really fully understand that someone messes with later. This could be the Magi stuff and Spirit Tracks coming together. And Hylian is known, but it's not practiced, and people only know that, hey, this language is called Hylian, which would say that people from the Wind Waker are kind of studying it. There's also the whole fact that there's islands before in the ancient times of the game, and you travel to each of these islands. It could have some connection to the ones in the Wind Waker. And then we also have the Yoda tree, who looks quite a bit like the Great Deku tree with the Koroks. Perhaps they came in there, planted some seeds, couldn't leave, and then evolved into the Sylphs. It's total.
There's also the Maku tree in, the Oracle games. The Legend of Zelda series tends to have quite a few talking trees in their games.
Yeah. And there's also a lot of technological advancement, which might lead to how Spirit Tracks was so much more industrial than the Wind Waker.
That technical advancement, I have a counter theory for you. I theorize that this game is pre-Skyward Sword, because, just give me a minute here, that ancient civilization you find in Lanayru is the civilization of Evoland. I don't know how ancient Hylian texts come in before Hyrule is a thing. Maybe, the timeline is screwing around. Maybe Hyrule just got sucked in and popped back out before Hyrule, and the entire Zelda series is a big time loop.
So how would this whole flood prophecy and the world actually flooding and unflooding come into this?
We already know that Evoland 2 is a big time loop. So I'm going to assume that time doesn't matter in this game at all. So when they say there's going to be a great flood, they're saying that there is a flood at some point in time.
Going on to the time loop. Yeah, we're kind of jumping around here, just like the game. Anyway.
It's my head more than the time travel episode.
Yeah, no, we're going back to time travel again. So in the time loop part of the thing, this is really interesting and very confusing at the same time, but at the end of the game, Sarah says she can't see the future nor the past anymore, which kind of goes into the theory that says that Sarah's remembers her memories from time loop to time loop. And for those of you that don't know, there's this thing that the Magi made called the Project that force resets time back to their time because they were afraid time that would end, even though they probably just maxed out how far out they could go with their things and like, oh no, I can't go farther in time, the world must end. Let's go make sure it never moves anymore. That's basically what they did.
I'm going to remind you real quick that not everyone named that character Saria in their playthrough.
Right, her default name is Fina. I just call her that. I'll try to refer to her as both if I can. Anyway, so the theory goes that because the project was damaged in your fight, in Kuro's fight with Ceres, that it severed the timeline and so broke it into the part that continues to loop, and it broke into the part that leads into the Wind Waker, or after the Wind Waker, depending on where you feel like placing it on the timeline. And Ceres fades away from when she fights Kuro, and she says she can feel her power fading, and then she says she wants to see him again, and then she goes poof. Kuro is kind of stuck in there, and he just kind of stays there until Fina pulls him out of it using his own technology as his Professor Jiro alias. So the theory here kind of goes that Kuro is stuck in between the time streams. He could have been pulled onto either side depending on how things went. Fina pulled him into the time that resets, as you can see, because at the end of the game it shows the original cutscene of waking up once again.
Hold up. If Kuro is stuck in an infinite time loop, he can never grow up. Therefore, how does he become Professor Giro?
He didn't grow up. Professor, in the beginning of the game, that's what leads to Professor Jiro, which is kind of confusing. But Professor Jiro happened before Kuro, and this is
Dang
also
it.
this is also
That makes so much more sense now. I wish I knew that when I was playing the game.
yeah, it's called, the achievement's called Troubling Past for a reason. But yeah, Professor Jiro happens before Kuro, and the reason why Ceres doesn't recognize Kuro as Professor Jiro when she bumps into him as a kid is because this is the first time loop she's actually shoved him out into the world, because she knew who he was, because this could be a second or third loop, and she developed a plan before meeting him, and therefore it changed how the loop would run. And so Kuro, this is the first timeline that Kuro is in, so she kind of looks at him as like, you look like Professor Jiro, but you can't be. I shoved him through a time warp, and if I really did run into him, he'd have his mask on, and he'd be chasing me again.
Whoa. I need to replay this game.
Yeah, I'm doing it right now. There's already tons of things and foreshadowing that I never caught the first time I went through it.
Oh, jeez. You know what? You do the work of replaying the game, and I'll just watch your Let's Play.
Yeah, works for me. Alright, so next we're moving on to something that's a little more Zelda involved, and this one is much more easily dismissed, and everything else could still work out. But this next theory is that Kuro has a tie to Rauru, the Sage of Light from Ocarina of Time. Because when the whole stream of time is threatened by Ceres, Kuro is awakened, and he gains power over time and space, just like Rauru. Rauru has power greater than the Master Sword. It says it in the Historia, which is really crazy. So if Kuro has any ties to Rauru at all, that would give him some jurisdiction of time. And because time itself was being threatened, he awakened, because the pattern was with the sages, they awakened when their environment overall was being threatened. We don't have confirmation with this for Rauru, but it's a pretty good theory. So
If Rauru has powers greater than the Master Sword, why does he make Link do all the work of fighting Ganon?
anyway, so it might be that Kuro is a descendant of Rauru, because he can focus his powers and abilities into other people, such as why he gives Link the medallion. Otherwise, there would be no point in getting the medallions. There's also a less solid theory that Kuro is Rauru, because he inherently knows how to adjust time when he's awakened. He's just like, oh, cool, let's start changing time. Boom, slow down time, beat up Ceres, let's go. He also has...
He could have had that knowledge with Professor Giro, though.
Not really. Professor Jiro couldn't wave his hand and start slowing down time. He only knew how to use the megaliths and travel between time periods, and he used that to kind of set up traps in his own lab from time period to time period. There's also the fact that Kuro inherently knows how to use a sword really well, when Professor Jiro never even owned a sword. So the question is, how did he get so good with the sword?
Let him borrow one at the beginning of the game for like 5 minutes.
He guessed one at the beginning of the game for 5 minutes, I guess. So he could have had some training there, which would be a big hole to this. I didn't think of that for some reason. This is why we have
Maybe
guess
they've
3885
been training him
here.
to do that thing over and over again. Maybe he's been smashing pots for decades preparing for this trip.
It's a possibility, but then why wouldn't he have it on him whenever he's talking and recording things? And why didn't he have one on him when Ceres was challenging him and pushed him through a hole? Should have been prepared.
Because that would be cheating.
There's also the fact that Kuro can boost other people's abilities, and we've already discussed how Rauru can do this through the medallion, and because Kuro can focus with other people, they can do that as well. And then, of course, we have the disproof that Rauru is not really a mean person, and he wouldn't kill people to get a lab, as Professor Jiro
Most
did.
heroes are also villains. That'll be
And
coming up in an episode in a couple weeks. Don't worry, I already have it planned.
plus, Rauru does not really share too many qualities with Professor Jiro or Kuro in appearance or in attitude.
Well, to be fair, we only meet Rauru for a very small amount of time. He can have a huge hidden personality that we never know about.
Yep, we'll leave that one up to you guys to whether you want to subscribe to that one or not. And then here comes the really confusing part. But here is basically the effects of what happened. A bunch of this is mainly Evoland 2 to Evoland 2, but so we see the general time rule that it already happened, but we also see stack seen as well, but not reset, which is interesting because that's how Ocarina of Time and Majora's Mask works. It works with reset time, meaning you go back in time and everything is reset, just like the name says. But stack is when two of you exist at the same time. You actually see yourself twice in Evoland 2 when you're time warping around.
But that really only happens in the anomaly, which could be breaking the rules.
Yeah, but you also see the it already happened thing, which is part of the, which it could mean it already happened is part of the previous time loop, and the stack is the time loop that you're in. You're consistently changing it, which would mean that you're on a second or third time loop with Kuro, which would be really weird, but it's totally possible. And it would also explain why some things you do in the game have already happened, such as the blowing up of the island, but others have not, such as erasing the fact that Professor Shiro blew up half the continent, or the fact that Ceres and you have a fight, or the fact that the Demon Wars no longer lasted so long, and then the kids actually have their dialogue change after you've finished the war.
They do. Dang it. I should have beaten this game more fully.
Yes. And then part of this is only Kuro and Ceres can change the time loops because they have the knowledge of the time loop. So they're like, okay, this is happening. This project thing exists. If I do this, this could happen in the next loop. Or if I do this, this other thing could happen in the time loop. And Ceres can see between the time loops. And Kuro's kind of the guardian of it and the sage of it. So he has kind of double duty there. But because of that, they both, Ceres couldn't delete him from time like she did with everybody else.
I have a theory. We say that if Evoland 2 and Legend of Zelda take place in the same universe, well, Evoland Zelda is not the only game that Evoland 2 gives shoutouts to. First of all, we see Annie from League of Legends in the future inside the city, which name I can't remember right now. She's one of the children that you take a key from, I think. Yeah, that's it. So that would place Legend of Zelda in the same world of League of Legends as well. You've heard of Kingdom Hearts, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so we find Sora from Kingdom Hearts in the Sylph Woods, which would place it in connection with Kingdom Hearts. And in Kingdom Hearts, we have Mickey Mouse. So that places Zelda in the same world as Mickey Mouse.
No, it's kind of got a loose
One moment I'm not done yet.
Sora
One
travels
moment
with
we find
companions
creepers
all the
in the
time.
mine. That places Zelda in the same world as Minecraft.
Not necessarily either. It could mean that we have some similar evolution, or creepers are just kind of coming down from the moon, because that's also the theory of Minecraft, is that they came from the moon. And Sora is by himself. In all the games, he's always got companions with him. So him being by himself is really, really abnormal for him. And then the other thing with having Sora there is, why would he be asking the Sylph for a prophecy of what his next quest should be? Because he knows it pretty darn well.
Good question. I should go play Kingdom Hearts.
So, yeah. And that's what they say in the game, is that everyone who comes by there is looking for their next quest. Link tells you don't look
What
for
is
Navi.
Ryu doing? I thought Ryu just beats people up.
Maybe he's looking for the next car to destroy.
I'm taking out enough Camaros. Show me a Ford. Where can I find a Ford?
Yeah, that part is by far the most strange one there. The easiest one connecting it is definitely Link and Mario, since that connection was already established through Termina. Some of my last notes that I have here is that Professor Shiro might have killed off Kuro and Fina, which would explain why he said, "I did away with the man and woman," and describes the project as a failure, which could possibly be Kuro, and Saria/Fina remade him through pulling him out of the time stream, and that Kuro is that old man in the village who says, "I know you." I don't subscribe to this theory, but it's a theory that exists out in the interwebs, so I thought I would bring it up anyway. And then there's also the possibility that Ceres might be a Rauru descendant in some way, shape, or form, because she has quite a bit of control over time and space.
So, Shiro committed indirect suicide.
That's a theory. I don't think it's true.
We can debate this later. Move on.
That's kind of the end of it, which is kind of good because this was already getting really confusing, which is kind of the nature of this game, but I still love it. So,
Thank you
anyway,
for listening.
thank
The
you.
Mysteries of Hyrule. Next time we won't talk about time travel as much.
Yeah,
Oh dear.
too much time travel. We didn't even talk about Captain Trina in this episode. Wait.
Shout outs to Captain Trina. Goodbye, guys.
Main reason is because I'm going to name one of the characters in Evoland 2 after her, because they're an archaeologist.
Spoiler alert.
Yep, spoiler
Captain
alert.
Trina, you're not watching, but if you are, thanks for watching, and thank you for everyone else who's watching.
But yes, there is an archaeologist, and she knows magic, and she knows all the things about ancient people, and she quotes a book a lot, which makes me think of Trina.
Oh yeah.
I put two and two together. Plus, you see her with pirates!
That is true.
So, that's why
Let's
I'm
make a
doing
Captain
it.
Trina episode, because Captain Trina's name was based off of a theory.
And she looks
That-
just like a
alright, I'm
portrait
gonna
in
put down-
Tetra's room.
Yes, we'll do a Captain Trina episode later.
Yeah,
And not invite Captain Trina. We'll invite her to the episode after that.
that would be so rude. Alright, anyway, thank you guys for watching this episode, and I will see you guys next time. Thanks for coming on, guest 3885.
Thank you for having me. I hope Devin gets well soon.
Whoa! Smart Devin, I have found that Fireally and guest 3885 are about to create an episode regarding theories of Evoland 2 that is missing key evidence from the ancient volcano. Ensure that my message is delivered.
Alright, let's hear it.
The man found could be the failed project that I was talking about. The old man that shows up later on in the game who says very mysterious things, including "I know you," even though this is the first time you have ever encountered him.
That guy's weird.
The findings at this volcano do sound a lot like the Wind Waker. The anomaly buildings may have become the Tower of the Gods, warping from inside the anomaly into the world. And it became a testing facility for everyone, as this is where Kuro was supposed to face his final test. But this could also just be time looping, and items from the future end up in the past because the world floods and everything starts all over again. The Magi are deciphering the Magi stuff, and they're trying to figure out their own language, not even knowing that it's their own language, and that they don't even know it. And it becomes a very painful business. We should stay away from this.
Messing with my head with the time travel nonsense again. Thanks, time travel.
The Flooded Kingdom talked about could be Hyrule. It would prove post the Wind Waker more than pre the Wind Waker, because it would explain why there's no mention of the hero of time and why it's actually flooded instead of like inside of a bubble. And the Magi, they're kind of nuts. Seems like they had some kind of civil war that happened between them, which is why we have the researchers at the volcano rather than the mainland, and they created the project, which I'm in charge of course. I think it's a good idea. It would also mean that we would know exactly where in Hyrule Evoland 2 is taking place, since we have the dormant volcano. That would come after Link freezes it with the ice arrow and retrieves the iron boots. Or this could also help us find out where Zenari came from and why he would actually want to leave the place and not actually return nor bring anybody with him. Or the man in Zenari could be the same person, and he was the only one that escaped the failure of the Magi that destroyed the entire race.
Lucky old man.
And the biggest part this evidence plays into is Skyward Sword, because global warming happens rather rapidly.
Darn global warming.
No one knows exactly how it happened, but who's to say that the Magi didn't start it before they froze the South Pole. They had quite a bit of technology. They could have easily been polluting things. They also have the eyeball logo everywhere, and they mess with quite a bit of time things, and they create robots. Why they would disappear is because the molecular project goes wrong, and it starts destroying everything, converting the sea into sand, which would later become the water again with the coming of the Wind Waker. But at the time of Skyward Sword, all the water has been split down into sand from molecular pieces. And the people, they either get mutated into sentient creatures, or they would be destroyed on the spot. The man that was supposed to protect the project, not knowing what happened to me, even though he should have known that I would not let down the project, he went through a megalith and escaped. And when he escaped, he made it to the past, just before the past that Kuro would enter. And when he arrives at the place, he assumes that no one else made it. So he builds himself a laboratory with a few people coming with him. I had to go over there and negotiate with him that I would take care of everything. And he moved out, and he went over to the Windy Valley, where he spent his time sweeping things. He also spent a little bit of time in the anomaly.
What kind of crazy old guy sweeps the dirt?
Afterwards, Kuro has some words with him. He knows exactly who Kuro is, and he's met him more than once. However, Kuro has not done this, so he's rather confused and just kind of takes him as a crazy guy.
He is a crazy guy. He's sweeping the dirt.
The Dark Age spoken of would be the time of demise, and the reason why there's people on the surface is because these people fell off. This would be why the Knight Academy would actually be needed, and it's only 25 years old when people have been there much, much longer, and why there's so few graves.
I always wondered why the Knight Academy was a thing. I mean, the worst they have is Remlets, Peace, Choo-Choos. Do they really need a Knight Academy?
And if we can make materials that let us just drop out of the sky and then just magically glide down without squashing yourself, if a teenage girl can do this, I believe that the technology would exist for other people to land on the surface without getting killed. They also managed to populate an area that has a lot to do with flight travel later on. And Tiki eats the anomaly, as they hint at in the game itself, and he just kind of goes to sleep, keeping the knowledge of that hidden from anyone, unless the Tower of the Gods is part of the anomaly, in which case it would appear afterwards, just kind of warp out of Tiki. Smart Devin, you have now heard my rather unorganized set of information.
Yeah, seriously, pull yourself together.
That must be sent to Fireally and guest 3885. Make sure it gets in the episode. If you are too late to get it to them while they are recording, at the very least you can put it at the end of the video. Make sure that this is noted, and don't fail.
I got you, buddy.